She came to Wyoming with nothing but a letter and hope, only to be humiliated at the station and called a buzzard in a bonnet by the sister of the man she'd come to marry. Martha made it clear Clara wasn't welcome, not with her face, not in this town, not in their lives. But Clara had something stronger than looks, grit, soul, and an idea that would soon outshine every sneer in the county. And just wait till you see how the whole town ended up gathered around her, while the man who once doubted her dropped to one knee, because justice didn't just win, it bloomed. Clara Morrison was born in a forgotten coal town in West Virginia, where the sky was always gray and dreams didn't last past grade school. Her nose, long and sharply curved, was the first thing anyone noticed and the last thing they ever let her forget. Girls whispered behind her back, calling her buzzard. Boys turned her into a joke, daring each other to stare at her without laughing. No one made it long. At home, things weren't kinder. Her father coughed up coal dust. Her mother stitched scraps into meals. Clara grew up quiet, practical, and painfully aware that no man would ever fight for a woman with her face. By 26, she had no parents, no prospects, and no illusions left. She sewed for pennies and read marriage ads by candlelight, circling words like modest and honest with trembling hands. Then she sent a letter, plain-spoken, sincere, and a single photograph of herself in a worn blue dress, eyes lowered. To her surprise, Garrett Sloan wrote back. A widowed rancher in Wyoming, Garrett didn't ask for beauty. He wanted honesty, steadiness, someone who knew silence. After months of letters, Clara boarded a train west, but at the station, it wasn't Garrett who greeted her. It was his sister, Martha, cold-eyed and sharp-tongued. "So this is your pleasant appearance?" Martha sneered. "He didn't say you looked like a buzzard in a dress." She walked away, leaving Clara alone with her suitcase in the wind. When Garrett arrived, he looked at Clara, not her nose, not her dress, but her trembling hands and lowered gaze. "I didn't know Martha would meet you," he said softly. "I should go back," Clara whispered. But Garrett didn't let her. He helped her into his wagon and brought her home, ignoring Martha's stares and neighbors' smirks. That night, he watched as Clara fed the animals, patched a fence, and whispered to a nervous colt. He didn't see a buzzard. He saw a woman no one had ever truly looked at, until now. Life on the ranch was no gentle chapter. Clara rose before the rooster's call, long before the sun burned mist off the prairie grass. She moved with quiet purpose, milking cows, scrubbing troughs, sewing feed sacks, fixing fence wire that snapped in the cold night wind. She baked bread from scratch every morning, though no one asked her to. She cleaned rooms that weren't hers and mended clothes no one thanked her for. She worked longer hours than anyone else under that roof, yet never once complained. Garrett noticed. Martha didn't. To Martha, Clara was still that woman from the ad, a charity case. No matter how many chores Clara finished, how many blisters she earned, she remained an outsider. Neighbors followed suit, offering polite nods, but guarded glances. They never asked her opinion. They never said her name. Then came the Sunday market. It was the kind of day that brought the whole county into town, sunny, loud, dust curling under boots and bonnets. Clara wore her best apron and carried a basket of fresh rolls she'd baked herself. Garrett had gone to fetch supplies. She stood alone near the produce stands, watching children chase each other and trying not to feel invisible. That's when Loretta appeared. Tall, blonde, immaculate, in her lace gloves and high-collared dress. She was the kind of woman who made people pause mid-sentence. Once, she'd nearly married Garrett. Everyone knew that. Clara turned toward her, smiling gently. Loretta didn't smile back. "You can hide that nose behind an apron all you like," she said softly, venom buried in velvet. "But everyone here knows why you came, because no man back home wanted you, so you ran west, hoping we wouldn't notice." Her voice was calm, her words anything but. It wasn't just an insult. It was a sentence Clara had carried her whole life, and hearing it aloud made her chest hollow out like a broken barn. She walked away without a word, blinking back tears, Behind the livestock pens, beyond the woodpile, she crumpled to the dirt and wept. Real, raw sobs, the kind she hadn't let out since her mother passed. She covered her mouth with both hands to muffle the sound. She didn't hear Garrett approach. He didn't say her name, didn't ask questions, just sat down in the dust beside her, removed his hat, and placed her trembling hand flat against his chest. "I didn't choose you for your face, Clara," he said quietly. "I chose you for your words. You wrote that you understood loneliness, that you didn't run from hard work. So do I. That's why I wrote back." She said nothing, but her hand stayed on his chest, and her shoulders softened just enough for the hurt to settle. Neither of them saw Martha watching from the barn door. That evening, when Clara returned to the house, her suitcase was already waiting on the porch. Martha stood with arms crossed, lips tight. "He doesn't love you. He just hates being alone. And you, have you even seen yourself?" Clara stared at the suitcase, at the woman in front of her, at the porch where she had scrubbed the steps each morning. She lifted the handle, then stopped. And for the first time in years, Clara Morrison looked someone in the eye. "I've lived my whole life the way you'd prefer," she said. Her voice didn't shake. Quiet, small, looking down, trying not to offend anyone by existing. "But today I realized something. Garrett saw me, not the face. Me. And you never once tried." She exhaled slowly. "So if being ugly means being honest, then I'd rather be ugly for the rest of my life." Then she stepped over her suitcase and walked inside. A month passed. The air grew cooler, the days shorter, and the silence around the house began to feel like peace, not tension. Martha hadn't returned. No letters, no explanations, just absence. And for the first time since Clara arrived, the ranch felt calm. Garrett made a quiet decision. He gathered timber, borrowed nails, and started building, just beyond the old apple tree, near the rise that overlooked the pasture. Day by day, plank by plank, he built a small house. Nothing grand, but it was theirs. A space untouched by judgment, by old grudges or whispered disapproval. Clara moved in with one suitcase and a single shelf of books. That was all she needed. Life began to reshape itself. She suggested they try something new. Lavender. Lavender? Garrett had blinked. "The flower?" Clara smiled. "It keeps pests away. Smells good. And if we dry it right, I can make soap." He didn't argue. He just handed her a patch of dirt and a shovel. At first, the men in town laughed. "Soap from a field? What's next? Perfume from the barn?" But Clara kept working. She planted rows of lavender in neat, thoughtful lines. She learned when to harvest, how to cure it, how to blend oils and wrap bars in simple paper with her own stitched stamp. By spring, people were buying her soap out of curiosity. By summer, they were buying it in bulk. By autumn, she had a waiting list. The ranch that once scraped by on cattle feed and shoeing horses now thrived on something as delicate as a bloom. What began as an experiment became a business. Garrett built shelves in the barn. Clara hired 2 neighbor girls to help wrap orders. People came from miles away for Sloan River soap. Then came the autumn fair of 1883. Booths lined the square, full of pickled goods, carved wood, and quilts laid out like storybooks. But it was Clara's stall that drew the largest crowd. Lavender bundles, hand-milled soaps, sachets stitched from reclaimed linen. And that's where Loretta appeared again. This time there was no lace, no sharpness in her voice. She stood quietly, eyes cast low. "You did well," she said. Barely more than a whisper. Then she moved on. Clara didn't need more than that. Because just moments later, Garrett stepped forward through the crowd. No one noticed at first, until he got down on one knee. He held out a small ring, hand-carved, simple wood, worn smooth from the palm of a working man. "You don't have to say yes," he said, "but I'd like you to be my wife, not because you came here through a letter, but because you've become everything I never knew I needed." Clara's breath caught, and she wept, not from pain, but from release. the weight of years lifted by something as soft as love. Around them, people watched, people who once turned away from her, who now asked her how to grow rosemary, who wanted to wear dresses like hers, who bought her soap and asked for advice. Her face hadn't changed. Her nose still curved the same way. But now it belonged to a woman known across the valley not by how she looked, but by how she made people feel. They called her the Heart of Sloan River, and she finally believed it.